She collapsed outside the courtroom on her divorce day, broken, shattered, and utterly alone. A billionaire who had just finalized his own divorce saw her fall and, without thinking twice, rushed forward and caught her before she hit the ground. He carried her to the ambulance, his heart pounding with a pain that mirrored her own. When the paramedics asked about his relationship with her, he took her trembling hand, tears glistening in his eyes, and declared, "She's my wife now." Her ex-husband stood frozen, finally realizing, "I lost a queen. Hello, my treasured, unstoppable, and precious family who gives me purpose. Welcome back to the Penthouse Diaries. May God's favor surround you like a shield. May His love fill every room of your home, and may His strength carry you through every challenge. May the women watching this walk in confidence and beauty. May the men stand tall with wisdom and honor, and may the children in your lives grow in happiness and safety. May heartache never find you, and tears of sorrow never fall from your eyes. I declare blessings over your health, success in all you touch, and unbreakable bonds within your families. May morning bring you new mercies, nighttime bring you perfect peace, and every breath you take remind you of God's endless love. Laura Bennett had always believed her marriage was unshakable, until she started noticing Daniel coming home later and later each night. At first, she told herself it was just work stress. His law firm was expanding. He had new clients, bigger cases. But then came the small things that didn't add up. A cologne she'd never smelled before lingering on his clothes when he climbed into bed. The way he'd started showering as soon as he walked through the door instead of greeting her first. How his phone, which used to sit carelessly on the kitchen counter, now stayed glued to his hand or buried deep in his pocket. Laura tried to ignore the unease crawling up her spine, tried to focus on making his favorite meals and keeping their home perfect. But doubt, once planted, grows roots in the dark. One evening, while Daniel was in the shower, she saw it. His phone vibrating on the bathroom counter, face up, a message preview glowing on the screen. "Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again?" Her hands went numb. The phone slipped slightly in her grip as she opened it. His passcode was still their anniversary, a bitter irony that made her stomach turn. Inside, she found weeks of messages, intimate late-night conversations, plans made in secret, photos she could barely stand to look at. Every message was another crack in the foundation of everything she'd believed was solid. When Daniel emerged from the bathroom, towel wrapped around his waist and steam still clinging to his skin, he found her sitting on the edge of their bed, his phone in her shaking hands. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then his face hardened, not with guilt or shame, but with something worse, relief, as if he'd been waiting for this moment, ready for the cage door to finally open. "How long has this been going on?" Laura's voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Daniel didn't answer right away. He walked calmly to the closet, pulled out fresh clothes, and began dressing as though she'd asked him about his day. "Daniel, I'm talking to you. How long? Does it change anything if I tell you?" He buttoned his shirt with steady hands. "Does it?" She stood abruptly, disbelief giving way to anger. "Yes, it changes everything. We're married. We made vows. I deserve to know how long you've been lying to my face." He turned finally, and the emptiness in his eyes made her breath catch. "I don't want to be married anymore, Laura. I haven't wanted this for a while now." The words landed like stones dropping into deep water, creating ripples that shattered her reflection. She gripped the phone tighter, her knuckles white. "No, no, we can fix this. Whatever's wrong, we can talk to someone. We can go to therapy. We can figure this out together. I'm in love with her." His voice was flat, final. "Who is she?" Laura heard herself whisper. "Someone who makes me feel alive again." He grabbed his jacket from the chair. "I want a divorce." "No!" She crossed the room and grabbed his arm, desperation making her bold. "Please, Daniel, don't do this. We can work through anything. Just give us a chance. Give me a chance. Tell me what I did wrong. I'll fix it. I swear I'll fix it." He looked down at her hand on his arm, then gently but firmly removed it. "You didn't do anything wrong, Laura. That's the problem. You're too much, too intense, too needy. I just want space to breathe." The words carved themselves into her heart. She sank to her knees, pride evaporating in the face of losing everything. Please, I'm begging you, don't walk away from us. Remember when we got married? You said I was the only person who truly understood you. You promised we'd grow old together. Those vows meant something. I meant them when I said them. He moved toward the door, stepping around her kneeling form as though she were furniture to navigate. But people change. I've changed. Daniel, please. She reached for him, crawling forward, every shred of dignity stripped away by panic. Just stay tonight. Just talk to me. We can figure this out. I love you. I love you so much. He paused at the doorway, his hand on the knob. For one heartbreaking second, she thought he might turn around, that he might see her, really see her, and remember what they used to have. I know you do, he said quietly, his back still to her, but I don't love you anymore. I'm sorry. The door closed. The sound wasn't loud, just a soft click of the latch. But in the sudden silence, it echoed like the end of the world. Laura collapsed fully onto the floor, her screams tearing through the empty house as reality crashed over her in waves. She cried until her throat was raw, until no more tears would come, until the room grew dark and the house grew cold around her. Hours later, she dragged herself to their bed and buried her face in his pillow, breathing in the fading scent of him, wondering how you keep breathing when your reason for breathing just walked out the door. The divorce papers arrived at her door exactly 5 days later. The divorce papers sat on her kitchen table like a death sentence, the legal language cold and impersonal. Laura's hands trembled as she read through them. Each clause a confirmation that Daniel had been planning this exit long before she discovered the truth. She couldn't stop herself. She went back to his phone records, his credit card statements, evidence she'd been too afraid to fully examine that terrible night. Hotel receipts from weekends he'd claimed were work conferences. Dinner charges at romantic restaurants during late meetings. Text messages stretching back months. Each one a small betrayal she'd been too trusting to notice. Her hands shook violently as she scrolled through it all, cold sweat breaking across her skin despite the warmth of the house. The woman's name appeared again and again. Miranda. The other woman had a name, a face in the photos, a whole life that had been built on the ruins of Laura's marriage. Daniel came home that evening to find her at the kitchen table, surrounded by printed receipts and bank statements. He didn't even flinch. You've already talked to a lawyer. Her voice was hollow. These papers, they're detailed, professional. You've been planning this for weeks. I didn't want it to be messy. He set his briefcase down, loosening his tie as if they were discussing dinner plans. Messy? Laura laughed, a sharp, broken sound. Daniel, please, we can still fix this. I'll change. I'll be less, whatever you need me to be. We can go to counseling. We can take a trip, reconnect. I don't want to reconnect. He cut her off, frustration creeping into his voice for the first time. Laura, you're suffocating me. You always have been. I feel trapped in this marriage. With Miranda, I can breathe. I can be myself. Trapped? The word felt like a slap. I loved you. I supported your career, your dreams. How is that trapping you? This is exactly what I mean. He rubbed his temples. You're too much, too emotional, too intense. I can't do this anymore. So you've already decided. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You left me weeks ago. I just didn't know it. He didn't deny it. He simply picked up his briefcase and walked toward their bedroom, his bedroom now, leaving her alone with the wreckage of their life together. The weeks that followed blurred into a nightmare Laura couldn't wake from. She texted him constantly, begging for another conversation, one more chance. She showed up at his office only to be turned away by his secretary with pitying eyes. Her friends offered hollow comfort. You're better off without him, and time heals everything. Words that meant nothing when she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't recognize herself in the mirror. She lost 12 pounds. Dark circles carved shadows under her eyes. At night, she lay awake replaying every moment of their marriage, searching for where she'd gone wrong, what she could have done differently. The night before the hearing, Laura stood in her bathroom and stared at her reflection. The woman looking back was a stranger, hollow-eyed, thin, broken. She gripped the edge of the sink and whispered to herself, You will survive this. You will survive. But she didn't believe it. The next morning, Laura arrived at the courthouse in a simple black dress, her hands clutching the folder of papers her lawyer had prepared. She walked up the steps, each one feeling heavier than the last. Then she saw him. Daniel stood near the entrance, laughing at something his lawyer said. And beside them, touching his arm with casual intimacy, stood a beautiful woman with auburn hair and a confident smile. Miranda. Laura's heart cracked clean through. He'd brought her to their divorce hearing. He'd already moved on, already replaced her, as if their 7 years together had meant nothing at all. The woman she used to be would have crumbled. But something hardened in Laura's chest as she watched them together. A cold, terrible understanding that the man she'd loved no longer existed, if he ever had. She climbed the remaining steps, walked past them without a word, and entered the courtroom where her marriage would officially die. The courtroom was smaller than Laura had imagined, sterile and cold with fluorescent lights that hummed overhead. She sat beside her lawyer at a wooden table, Daniel and his attorney at another. Through the small window in the courtroom door, Laura could see Miranda waiting in the hallway, arms crossed, checking her phone with the casual confidence of someone who'd already won. The audacity of it, bringing her here, parading his replacement like a trophy, made bile rise in Laura's throat. The judge, a gray-haired woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewed the documents with methodical precision. Her voice droned through asset divisions, property settlements, terms and conditions, reducing 7 years of marriage to legal jargon and signatures. Laura felt numb, as if she were watching this happen to someone else. Her body was present, but her mind floated somewhere above, detached and distant. Before I finalize this decree, the judge said, looking up from the papers, I'm required to ask, is there any possibility of reconciliation between the parties? The question hung in the air. Laura's heart seized. She turned instinctively toward Daniel, some foolish part of her still hoping he might hesitate, might say something that would stop this runaway train. No, Your Honor. His answer came immediately, firm and clear, without a single second of doubt. The judge's eyes shifted to Laura. Mrs. Bennett? Laura opened her mouth, but no sound came. Tears blurred her vision as she forced the word past the lump in her throat. No! The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the silent courtroom. Something inside Laura's chest shattered, not her heart that had broken weeks ago, but something deeper. The final thread holding her together snapped, and she felt herself begin to unravel. Daniel immediately pulled out his phone, his attention already elsewhere. His thumbs moved across the screen, and Laura knew. She just knew. He was texting Miranda, telling her it was done, telling her he was free. She couldn't breathe. Laura stumbled to her feet and followed Daniel into the hallway. Miranda stepped forward to greet him, but Laura's voice cut through. Daniel, wait, please. He paused and Miranda's smile faltered as she stepped back, watching. Was I not enough? Laura's voice cracked, tears streaming freely now. Did any of it mean anything to you? Our wedding, our life together, all those years. Did they matter at all? We grew apart. Laura, he glanced at Miranda, then back at her, his expression carefully neutral. These things happen. People change. His phone buzzed again. He looked down at it, dismissed the notification, then pocketed the device. Miranda touched his arm, a possessive gesture that made Laura's stomach twist. I hope you find what you're looking for, Daniel said, and turned away, Miranda already guiding him toward the exit, toward the sunlight streaming through the courthouse doors. Laura watched them walk away together, his hand finding the small of Miranda's back, and she realized he was never coming back. He would never look back. The hallway began to tilt. Sounds became muffled and distant, as if she were underwater. The fluorescent lights grew too bright, stabbing into her eyes. The air turned thick and heavy, impossible to draw into her lungs. She stumbled forward, desperate for air, for space, for anything but this suffocating pressure crushing her chest. Her knees buckled. Laura grabbed for the railing but missed. The courthouse steps loomed before her, stone and unforgiving. She heard someone shout, a distant, distorted sound. And then she was falling, the world spinning as darkness crept in from the edges of her vision. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. She felt herself being lifted, heard urgent voices calling for help. Through the haze, she saw Daniel and Miranda, standing frozen on the steps below, his face pale with shock. "Someone call an ambulance!" The voice was unfamiliar, deep and steady despite the urgency. Laura tried to focus on the face above her, a stranger with dark hair and eyes that held their own haunted pain. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Paramedics rushed up the steps with equipment and questions. "What's your relationship to her?" one of them demanded. The stranger looked down at Laura, still cradled in his arms. Their eyes met for a brief, searching moment. Then he reached for her limp hand, his fingers wrapping gently around hers, and spoke words that stunned everyone watching. "She's my wife now," the crowd gasped. Daniel's mouth fell open. Miranda's expression twisted with confusion. But Laura's vision was already fading, darkness pulling her under as the stranger's voice followed her down into the void, a promise whispered like a prayer. "You're going to be okay. I've got you." Laura woke to harsh fluorescent lights burning her eyes and the steady beep of monitors echoing in her ears. Her head throbbed, and for a disorienting moment, she couldn't remember where she was or how she'd gotten there. Then she saw him. The stranger from the courthouse sat in a chair beside her bed, his expensive suit rumpled, tie loosened, dark hair slightly disheveled. His eyes were tired but watchful, and when he noticed she was awake, something like relief crossed his face. "You're in the hospital," he said gently before she could ask. "You collapsed on the courthouse steps. The paramedics brought you here about 2 hours ago." Memory flooded back. The divorce, Daniel walking away, the world tilting, falling. Laura's face burned with humiliation. You caught me." "I did." He offered a small, sad smile. "I'm Jason Crawford." "You told them you were my husband." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why would you do that?" Jason leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "Because you needed someone, and I happened to be there. I'm sorry if I overstepped." "You shouldn't have bothered." Laura turned her face away, mortification washing over her. "I'm nobody to you. You should have just let me—" The door opened, cutting off her words. A doctor in blue scrubs entered, clipboard in hand, her expression professionally kind. "Mrs. Bennett, you're awake. Good. Your vitals are stable, but we did run some standard tests." She glanced at Jason, then back to Laura. "I need to inform you that you're pregnant. Based on the hormone levels, I'd estimate you're about 7 to 8 weeks along." The world stopped. Laura heard the words, but they didn't make sense. Pregnant. A baby. Life growing inside her at the exact moment her own life had just ended. "No." Her hands moved instinctively to her stomach. "No, that's not. I can't be—" "The test is quite clear," the doctor said gently. "I'll give you both some time to process this. A nurse will be in shortly to discuss prenatal care and next steps." She slipped out, leaving a suffocating silence behind. Laura's breathing accelerated, panic clawing at her chest. "He's going to think I trapped him. Daniel will think I got pregnant on purpose to keep him. He'll hate me even more. He'll think I'm manipulating him, that I—" "Laura, breathe." Jason moved to the edge of her bed, his voice calm and grounding. "Look at me. Breathe with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it." She followed his breathing, the panic slowly receding enough for her to think. When she finally looked at him, really looked at him, she saw the same raw pain in his eyes that she felt in her own chest. "I finalized my divorce this morning," Jason said quietly. "Same courthouse, different floor. My wife, ex-wife now, left me for someone with a bigger name, a flashier life. She told me I was boring, predictable, that loving me felt like drowning." He laughed bitterly. "So when I saw you fall, when I saw your ex-husband just stand there and watch, I understood exactly what you were feeling." Tears slipped down Laura's cheeks. "I'm sorry." "So am I." He paused. "The doctor said you can be discharged tonight. Do you have somewhere safe to go?" Laura thought of her apartment, their apartment, filled with memories of Daniel, his cologne still lingering in the closet, his coffee mug still in the sink. I can't go back there, not yet, but I don't have anywhere else. Jason stood, straightening his tie with a decision made. I have a house. It's too big, too quiet, and completely empty. There's a guest suite with its own bathroom. You can stay as long as you need, just until you figure out what comes next. No strings, no expectations. I don't even know you. But even as she said it, Laura felt something shift. This stranger had caught her when she fell, had stayed when he could have walked away, had shown her more kindness in 2 hours than Daniel had in months. You don't, Jason agreed, but you won't have to face tonight alone. That's a start. Laura closed her eyes, exhausted and overwhelmed, carrying a secret that changed everything. When she opened them again, she found herself whispering the most insane words she'd ever spoken. Okay. Jason's shoulders relaxed, and he nodded once. Okay. The drive up the hilltop estate felt surreal. Jason's car wound along a private road lined with manicured hedges and ancient oak trees, their branches forming a canopy overhead. When the house came into view, Laura's breath caught. It was stunning, a modern mansion of glass and stone, all clean lines and elegant architecture, surrounded by gardens that looked like they belonged in a magazine. The kind of house people dreamed of living in, the kind of house that felt utterly empty. Jason pulled into the circular driveway and cut the engine. Welcome, he said simply, but Laura heard the hollowness beneath the word. Inside, their footsteps echoed on marble floors. Jason gave her a brief tour, his voice quiet in the vast spaces. The living room with furniture that looked barely used. The gourmet kitchen with gleaming appliances that seemed more decorative than functional. French doors opening onto gardens with stone pathways and perfectly trimmed rose bushes. My ex-wife designed most of it, Jason admitted, pausing in the hallway. She had very specific visions for what our life would look like. She just didn't want to live it with me. He showed Laura to the guest suite, a spacious room with its own bathroom, a king-size bed, and windows overlooking the gardens. There are towels in the bathroom, and I'll bring you some clothes tomorrow. For tonight. He gestured to the small hospital bag containing her phone, wallet, and the courthouse documents she'd rather forget. Thank you, Laura whispered, for all of this. You didn't have to. Neither of us should be alone tonight. Jason's eyes held understanding. I'll be down the hall if you need anything. When he left, closing the door softly behind him, Laura sat on the edge of the bed and looked around. The luxury was breathtaking. Thick carpet, expensive linens, artwork on the walls. Everything she'd lost was a modest apartment and a failed marriage. Everything Jason had was this beautiful prison of loneliness. She pressed her hand to her stomach, where a life was growing that Daniel didn't want and Jason knew about before she did. The absurdity of it all nearly made her laugh, except she was afraid if she started, she'd never stop. An hour later, Jason knocked gently. I ordered Chinese food. I hope that's okay. I'm not much of a cook. Dinner was awkward at first, two strangers making small talk at a dining table built for 12. But when Jason admitted he'd once set off the fire alarm making toast, and Laura confessed the hospital jello had been the best thing she'd eaten in days, something shifted. They laughed, tentative, broken laughs, but real ones. This is the strangest day of my life, Laura said. Mine too, Jason agreed. And I've had some strange ones. That night, Laura jolted awake from a nightmare, the gavel striking, Daniel walking away, falling endlessly through darkness. She gasped, disoriented, her heart racing. A soft knock came at her door. Laura, are you okay? She opened it to find Jason standing in the hallway, concern etched on his face. Just a nightmare, she managed. I'm sorry if I woke you. You didn't. His eyes said he'd been awake too. Do you want to talk about it? No, I'll be fine. He nodded but didn't move. The nightmares get easier. Not quickly, but they do. He paused. Try to get some rest. Tomorrow will be better than today. After he left, Laura returned to bed and placed her hand on her stomach, speaking to the tiny life growing there. I have no idea what we're doing, she whispered. I don't know where we'll end up or how we'll survive this. But she glanced at the door where Jason had stood, offering kindness when he had every reason to retreat into his own pain. For the first time in weeks, we're not completely alone. Laura woke to the smell of something burning. She found Jason in the kitchen, staring at a pan of blackened eggs with genuine confusion. I followed the recipe, he said when he noticed her. You can't follow a recipe for scrambled eggs. Laura couldn't help but smile. Here, let me help. She took over, salvaging what she could, and they ate together as morning sunlight streamed through the windows. It felt oddly natural, domestic in a way that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. Days fell into a rhythm. Jason worked from his home office while Laura explored the house, slowly making herself less of a guest. She cooked simple meals. He made terrible coffee that she pretended was fine. They ate dinner together and talked about safe things, books, weather, anything but the wreckage of their marriages. One afternoon, Jason found her standing at the French doors, looking out at the gardens. Would you like to walk? He asked. The gardens were even more beautiful up close. Stone pathways wound between flower beds and ornamental trees, leading to a small pond with a bench beside it. Emma, my ex, designed all of this, Jason said, his voice distant. She had plans for a gazebo over there, a fountain by the entrance. She said we'd have garden parties, raise children who'd play hide and seek in the hedges. He paused. After she left, I couldn't come out here. Too many ghosts of things that never happened. And now, Laura asked softly, now it feels different, less like a graveyard, more like just a garden. They walked until sunset painted the sky pink and gold, neither wanting to return to the empty house just yet. That night, over reheated pasta, the conversation turned deeper. I begged him, Laura said quietly, staring at her plate. On my knees, I actually crawled after him. I promised I'd change, be less needy, less intense. Whatever he wanted, I had no pride left. Jason set down his fork. I did the same thing. I showed up at Emma's hotel, brought flowers, told her I'd be more exciting, more spontaneous, that I'd become whoever she wanted me to be. He laughed bitterly. She called security. Laura looked up, seeing her own humiliation reflected in his eyes. I keep replaying it, wondering how I became that person. So desperate, so pathetic. You're not pathetic, Jason's voice was firm. You loved deeply. You fought for something you believed in. There's no shame in that. The shame belongs to the people who took that love and threw it away like it was worthless. Something cracked open inside Laura's chest. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Weeks of shame and self-loathing finally finding release. I just wanted to be enough. You were always enough, Jason said. For the right person, you'll be everything. He reached across the table, his hand covering hers in a gesture of comfort. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the air between them shifted, became something more than shared grief, more than friendship. Laura felt it, the warmth of his hand, the understanding in his eyes, the way her heart stuttered in her chest. Jason felt it too. She saw recognition flicker across his face before he gently pulled his hand back, clearing his throat. We should both get some rest. That night, Laura woke screaming from another nightmare. Daniel walking away while she remained frozen, unable to move or speak. Jason! The name escaped before she could think. Within seconds, her door opened. He appeared in pajama pants and a t-shirt, hair disheveled, eyes alert with concern. I'm here. I'm sorry, Don't apologize. He crossed to her bed and sat carefully on the edge. Do you want to talk about it? She shook her head. Just don't leave yet. Please. I won't. Jason stayed as Laura's breathing slowed and her eyes grew heavy. Just before sleep claimed her, she felt his hand rest lightly near hers on the blanket, not holding, but present. Close enough to know she wasn't alone. Laura stared at her phone for the third time that morning, Daniel's contact information glowing on the screen. Her thumb hovered over the call button, but she couldn't press it. You don't have to tell him, Jason said gently from across the breakfast table. Not if you're not ready. He's the father. He deserves to know, doesn't he? Jason set down his coffee. Biologically, yes, but deserve is a complicated word. What matters is what's best for you and the baby. Laura placed her hand over her stomach, a gesture that had become instinctive. I need to tell him, not because he deserves it, but because I need to know I did the right thing. After that, whatever he chooses is on him." Jason nodded. "Then tell him, but do it in public, somewhere safe. And remember, you're not asking his permission. You're informing him." 3 days later, Laura sat in a small cafe downtown, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she couldn't drink. When Daniel walked in, she barely recognized him. He looked thinner, stressed, his expensive suit slightly rumpled. "Laura!" He slid into the seat across from her, checking his watch. "I don't have much time. Work's been insane, and Miranda's, well, things have been complicated." No apology, no acknowledgement of what he'd done, just complaints about his own life. "I asked you here because I need to tell you something." Laura forced her voice to stay steady. "I'm pregnant." Daniel froze, his face draining of color. "What?" "About 10 weeks now. The baby is yours." "No." He shook his head, panic flashing in his eyes. "No, Laura, you can't. This isn't—" He lowered his voice to an angry whisper. "Are you trying to trap me? Is this some kind of game to get me back?" Laura felt ice settle in her veins. "I'm not trying to trap you, Daniel. I'm telling you because you have a right to know. What you do with that information is your choice." "My choice?" His laugh was bitter. "You think I have a choice? Do you have any idea what this will do to my reputation? To my relationship with Miranda? She'll think I planned this, that I was still—" He stopped himself, running his hands through his hair. "How much do you want?" "Excuse me?" "Money. To make this go away. Name your price." The words hit her like a slap. "Make this go away? You're talking about our child." "If I'd known about this earlier, we could have handled it properly," Daniel said coldly. "Before it became complicated." Laura's blood ran cold as his meaning sank in. Handled it. He would have pressured her to end the pregnancy. Her hand moved protectively to her stomach. "I'm keeping my baby," she said firmly. "I'm not asking you for anything, Daniel. I just thought you should know." "Well, now I know." He stood abruptly. "My lawyer will be in touch." He left without looking back, the cafe door swinging shut behind him. 2 weeks later, a courier arrived at Jason's estate with legal documents. Laura read through them with Jason beside her, his jaw tightening with each page. Daniel had signed away all parental rights in exchange for zero financial obligation. He'd chosen his freedom over his child without hesitation. Laura should have felt something: anger, grief, shock. Instead, she felt only a strange relief. The final thread connecting her to Daniel had been cut by his own hand. "He closed the door," Jason said quietly, watching her face. "Now we get to decide what opens next." Laura looked up at him, seeing the determination in his eyes. "We? If you'll let me." His hand found hers. "I'd like to be here for this. For both of you. Not as an obligation, but because I want to be." For the first time since the courthouse steps, Laura felt something like hope stirring in her chest. "I'd like that," she whispered. The final weeks of pregnancy transformed everything. Jason accompanied Laura to every doctor's appointment, asking questions the nurses probably thought were endearing. At night, he'd sit on the edge of her bed and talk to her growing belly. "Your mom's been craving strawberries again," he'd say, his hand hovering near, but never quite touching. "I bought out the whole produce section today." "You don't have to do this," Laura would remind him, though her protests had grown weaker. "I know," he'd reply with a soft smile. "I want to. I'm practicing." "Practicing for what?" "Being a dad." He said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Labor started at 3 in the morning. Laura woke to a sharp pain radiating through her lower back, and within minutes, Jason was at her door, already dressed, car keys in hand. "It's time," she gasped. The drive to the hospital blurred into a haze of contractions and Jason's steady voice promising her she could do this. In the delivery room, he refused to leave, even when the nurses suggested he might be more comfortable in the waiting area. "I'm staying," he said firmly, then gentler to Laura. "If you want me here, please don't leave." She gripped his hand as another contraction hit. Hours passed in waves of agony. Laura screamed that she couldn't do it, that it was too much, that she wasn't strong enough. "Yes, you are." Jason's voice shook but remained steady, his hand never leaving hers. You're the strongest woman I've ever known. You've survived everything life has thrown at you. You can do this. Your daughter is worth it. She's so worth it. Our daughter, Laura gasped between breaths and saw his eyes fill with tears. Our daughter, he repeated, his voice breaking. When the baby finally came, her first cry filled the room like a miracle. The doctor placed her on Laura's chest, this tiny, perfect human with a shock of dark hair and lungs that could wake the world. But Laura was watching Jason. His face was a portrait of pure awe, eyes wide, tears streaming freely, his hand reaching out to gently touch the baby's impossibly small fingers. When the nurse asked if he'd like to hold her, he looked at Laura for permission. Go ahead, she whispered. Jason cradled their daughter like she was made of glass and starlight. He stood swaying gently, murmuring promises Laura couldn't quite hear, and she saw it clearly. The fierce protectiveness, the instant love, the way he'd already become her father in every way that mattered. Jason, Laura said softly. He looked up, still holding the baby, his face transformed by joy. I'm in love with you. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. I'm sorry, I know this is terrible timing, and I know we're both still broken, and I'm terrified I'm ruining everything. But Laura! He sat carefully on the edge of her hospital bed, their daughter sleeping peacefully in his arms. From the moment I caught you on those courthouse steps, I knew my life would never be the same. I've watched you survive, rebuild, become stronger than you ever knew you could be. He looked down at the baby, then back at her. I love you, both of you. I've been in love with you for months. Laura felt tears stream down her face, but this time they were tears of joy. So what happens now? She asked. Jason smiled. Now we become a family. 3 months changed everything. The mansion that once echoed with loneliness now filled with baby coos and laughter. Jason had converted the room next to Laura's into a nursery, staying up late assembling furniture and hanging stars from the ceiling. Their daughter, Lily, had his full attention. He changed diapers, walked the floors during midnight crying sessions, and sang off-key lullabies that somehow always worked. Laura would watch him with Lily and marvel at how completely he'd become her father. Not practice dad anymore, just dad. They were preparing for Lily's afternoon feeding when the intercom from the front gate buzzed. Jason frowned. They weren't expecting anyone. Hello, he answered. I need to see Laura. Daniel's voice crackled through the speaker. And my daughter. Laura's blood turned to ice. Jason's hand found hers immediately, steadying. You signed away your rights, Jason said calmly into the intercom. You have no legal claim here. I want to see them, now, or I'll call the police and tell them you're keeping me from my child. Jason looked at Laura. She nodded shakily, and he buzzed the gate open. Daniel looked terrible. His expensive clothes hung loose on his frame. His face was haggard, and desperation clung to him like cologne. He pushed past Jason into the foyer, his eyes searching until they landed on Laura holding Lily. She's beautiful, he whispered, stepping forward. Laura instinctively stepped back. What are you doing here, Daniel? I made a mistake. His voice cracked. Miranda and it's over. The firm let me go. Everything fell apart, and I realized what I gave up. I want another chance, Laura. I want to be a father to our daughter. Our daughter? Jason's voice was cold steel. You signed paperwork calling her someone else's problem. You walked away before she was even born. Daniel's expression hardened. And who are you? Some rich guy playing hero? You think money makes you her father? No. Jason stepped forward, placing himself between Daniel and his family. Being there makes me her father. I was there when Laura couldn't keep food down for weeks. I was there for every doctor's appointment, every ultrasound, every moment of fear. I held Laura's hand through 23 hours of labor. I changed Lily's first diaper. I walked her through her first fever. I'm the one she reaches for when she cries. His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. Where were you? You had no right. You gave me the right when you abandoned them. Daniel turned back to Laura, his eyes pleading. Please, I'm her real father. You can't keep her from me. I'll go to court. I'll fight this. The world will see a mother keeping a child from her biological father. They'll side with me. Laura felt old fear rising, the fear of Daniel's anger, his threats, his ability to make her feel small. But then Lily made a small sound, and Laura looked down at her daughter's face, then at Jason standing protectively beside them. "What do you want, Daniel?" she asked quietly. "I want us to talk. Alone. Just you and me. Like it used to be. Maybe we can figure this out together." Every instinct screamed danger, but Laura found herself nodding. One conversation. In public. Tomorrow at Preston Park, 2 o'clock. "Laura!" Jason started, concern written across his face. "I need to do this," she told him. "I need to hear what he has to say. But I promise you," she met his eyes, "I'm coming back." After Daniel left, Jason pulled her close. Lily nestled between them. "He can't break you anymore. You're not the same woman he left." But as Laura lay awake that night, she wondered, was she strong enough to face the man who'd once convinced her she was worthless? Or would his words find the cracks still left in her armor? Preston Park was bustling with afternoon activity, children on swings, couples walking dogs, life continuing as it always did. Laura sat on a bench near the fountain, watching Daniel approach with the wary eyes of someone who'd finally learned to see clearly. He looked worse in daylight, tired, defeated, desperate. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, sitting down but keeping distance between them. "I know I don't deserve it." "No, you don't. So why am I here?" Daniel ran his hands through his hair, the gesture achingly familiar. "Everything fell apart, Laura. Miranda left me for her ex-boyfriend. The firm downsized and I was first to go. I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment, barely making rent." He laughed bitterly. "I had everything, and I threw it away." Laura waited, but he said nothing about her. Nothing about Lily, just his losses, his pain, his regrets. "I made mistakes," he continued. "The affair, the divorce. I was stressed, confused. But we had something real once. We can build it back. You, me, and our daughter. We could be a family again. You signed away your rights to her." "I was panicking. I didn't know what else to do. Miranda was threatening to leave if I didn't. But I can fix this. We can fix this." He reached for her hand. "You owe me another chance." Laura pulled her hand back. "I owe you nothing. I'm her father. You're a man who donated DNA." Laura's voice was steady, strong. "Jason is her father. He earned that title every single day you chose not to show up." Daniel's expression darkened. "You think a court will see it that way? I'll fight you, Laura. I'll drag you through every legal battle I can find. I'll tell everyone how you moved in with another man while pregnant with my child. I'll destroy the perfect little life you think you've built." He grabbed her arm, his grip tight, his voice rising. "You're being selfish. That's my daughter and I deserve—" Laura wrenched her arm free, something fierce and final rising in her chest. "Go ahead. Take me to court. Present your case." She stood looking down at him. "Show them the signed relinquishment papers. Explain your absence during the entire pregnancy. Tell them how you suggested I handle it when you learned I was carrying your child." Her voice was ice and steel. "Bring your evidence, Daniel. I'll bring mine." She started walking away. "Laura, wait. I'm not afraid of you anymore." She turned back one last time. "You taught me I was too much, too intense, too needy. But the truth is, I was never too much. I was just too much for you. And I'm grateful every single day that you left because it led me to someone who knows exactly how much I'm worth." She walked away, and this time, she didn't look back. When Laura arrived home, she found Jason in the garden with Lily in his arms, showing her the roses. He looked up, searching her face, and relief flooded his expression when he saw her strength. "I'm home," she said simply. "I can see that." He passed Lily to her, then took both their hands. "Laura, this garden was built for a dream that never came true. But you turned this whole house, this whole life, into something real. You made it a home." He knelt down on the stone pathway, and Laura's breath caught. "I know we both started broken, but somewhere along the way we became whole together. Will you marry me? Will you let me be your husband, Not just in a hospital hallway lie, but in truth. Yes, Laura whispered, tears streaming down her face. Yes. They married in that same garden 3 weeks later, a small ceremony with close friends. Lily in Jason's arms as they exchange vows about never making themselves small again, about choosing love that builds rather than breaks. Across town, Daniel sat alone in his dim apartment, scrolling through photos of their wedding that someone had posted online. The woman he'd discarded glowed with joy beside a man who'd known her worth from the moment he caught her fall. Laura stood in Jason's arms that night, their daughter sleeping peacefully nearby, and realized the truth. The day she collapsed wasn't the end of her story. It was the moment God caught her and placed her exactly where she was always meant to be, in the arms of a man who'd turned a desperate lie into the truest promise ever spoken. She's my wife now, and she always would be. The end.